Hi there, I want to share a couple materials that I use to color my handmade paper. I do this as I'm dipping, so I add the color to the dipping, and these are all natural ingredients. We'll be using cocoa powder, mixed berries, grass, and turmeric powder, and all of these things pigment the paper so that it has a different color. The turmeric powder adds a yellow tone, so it will just be adding the powder to the slurry and it will turn your paper more of a yellow. The grass adds a green tint, so it's almost a white, but there are green flecks in it, so overall it looks like a green sheet of paper. The berries will always be different depending on the mixture of berries you have. This one I have marionberries, raspberries, blueberries, and blackberries, I believe. And so I got this nice blue purpley color. And then cocoa powder, you end up with a brown paper, so kind of a tanny brown color by adding the cocoa powder to the slurry. I have several different paper making videos. You can find those up here and in the description below, going into the details of how to create a slurry, how to add liquid starch and acid reducer, and how to dip your paper. Today I'm just going to share how to make a slurry and then how to add the color to your slurry. So watch those videos for more details on paper making in general. So let's start adding colors to our bins of slurry here. I have water and paper slurry added to each of these bins. A paper slurry is a ground up collection of paper or fibers or some sort of product that you can make paper out of that is floating in water. So there's a paper and water mixture in this slurry. To create a dye or a color for each of these bins, you're going to take 2 sheets of recycled paper. I'm just using printer paper. Tear them up in one direction and then tear them up in the other direction, creating small pieces like this, and add them to your blender. And then add some water to your blender so that it covers the paper. About half a blender's worth. And then the amount of color product that you use for each item will be different depending on how much of a slurry bath you're using. We'll start with the cocoa, and I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of cocoa for this size of batch of slurry. So that's about, this will be 6 sheets of recycled paper that I have blended up. So I'll add 2 tablespoons to this. And my blender is solely for natural dyeing and paper making, and so I don't have to worry about what I put in it for later use in the kitchen, because I'm just using it for craft projects. I suggest getting a blender at a thrift store or a second use center so that you can use it without worrying about it being used in the kitchen. Now we're going to puree this paper and cocoa mixture together. And then add this to your bin of slurry. And it smells very chocolatey and delicious. And use a spoon or your hand to mix the slurry and the cocoa powder together. And there you can see an immediate difference in the color. Next we'll do the blender of berries. So I'll add my paper strips and my berries into the blender. And then add some water to that. And then add this to your bin. Next, add your paper to the blender and we'll do the grass. So I've taken some grass clippings from my yard and I'm going to grind them up until they're a nice fine texture in my blender. So add the clippings to your blender. And you want about 1.5 cups of grass clippings per 2 quarts of slurry. And the grass you'll need to grind up or blend up for quite a while because it'll need to be broken down so that you get the juices and break down the fibers into small pieces. So start blending it on like a puree setting and then work your way up to a chop setting or down to finer settings until it is nice and broke up and you don't have any strands of the grass remaining. And then add the grass to your slurry. And you'll end up with some fibers that don't totally grind up, and that's okay. The fresher the grass, the more new growth you use, the better the pigment you'll produce. If you use older, drier grass, then there's not as much color pigment to extract, and so you'll end up with a light green slurry rather than a brilliant green slurry. And now let's do the turmeric. For this guy, I'm gonna add all the powder I have left. You do about 1 to 2 tablespoons. Turmeric is highly staining. Try not to get it on your skin or your clothing or it will stain them a brilliant yellow. Pour this into your bath. And there you have your yellow. And when you add a blender full of color, mix it in so that it's evenly spread throughout the slurry. Once you've added color to your slurry bath, you can start to dip paper. And here I have a handmade screen that I'm going to dip with. So you'll set it into your bin, slide it under your slurry, shake it around, and then lift up. And for the berries, you might end up with some chunks of berry in your slurry that you just need to move away. And then I'll use my screen over top of this guy, press it on top to press out the excess water. Like so. And then transfer this to my tabletop. And then transfer your paper to your work surface and allow it to dry, or transfer it to a drying rack and allow it to dry on a drying rack. I'm going to clean off my board so that I can do my next one. So I'll go into the cocoa. First you stir it up a little bit, then you dip down, lift up to make your paper. And again, I have other paper making videos that go more in depth into the process of dipping paper and the slurry construction. And there is your brown. I'll transfer that down. Again, if you use fresher blades of grass, they will blend up more easily and they will have more color pigment. So using grass in the springtime for paper making is a great time because they have a lot of chlorophyll or the green color in them at that point. And that's how to hand dip paper with natural colors. I would love to hear of your experiments in natural dyeing your handmade paper. Leave a comment below. Like this video if you want to see more paper making videos, and subscribe so you get notified whenever I put out a new video. Thanks so much for watching. Happy paper making. I'll see you next time.